Boundary Violations. The Why of Things. Part 13 of 15. In emotionally healthy relationships, people respect each other's boundaries naturally, understanding that they are essential for mutual respect and trust. When someone consistently violates boundaries, it can feel deeply unsettling because it contradicts the basic respect we expect in relationships. Boundary violations occur when someone disregards or crosses the emotional, physical, or psychological limits set by another person. Boundaries are essential for healthy relationships as they establish guidelines for how we interact with one another. For individuals with cluster B traits, these boundaries are often ignored, pushed, or broken to suit their own needs, leading to manipulation, control, or emotional harm to those on the receiving end. What it is: a consistent pattern of disrespecting, ignoring, or overriding another person's boundaries, whether that's in terms of personal space, emotional needs, or relationship dynamics. Boundary violations often occur when the person seeks control, validation, or simply ignores the other person's autonomy. What it isn't: occasional misunderstandings or mistakes about someone's boundaries, which are typically followed by an apology and an adjustment. In healthy relationships, people recognize boundaries, and if they inadvertently cross them, they correct their behavior. Why people violate boundaries. Boundary violations often come from a sense of entitlement, a lack of empathy, or a need for control. For people with cluster B traits, boundaries may feel like obstacles to their desires or an affront to their sense of importance. They may not see boundaries as necessary or valid, and in extreme cases may intentionally push against them to assert dominance or control. Here's how boundary violations manifest in different cluster B disorders. IDD, or Impulsive Disregard Disorder, ASPD. Individuals with IDD may violate boundaries because they view others as extensions of their own needs. They don't respect others' autonomy, often seeing people as tools for their own use. Whether it's ignoring someone's emotional needs, physically invading their space, or manipulating situations for their own benefit, boundary violations are frequent because they disregard the impact of their actions on others. ESFD, or Extreme Self-Focused Disorder, or NPD. For those with ESFD, boundary violations occur when the other person's needs or boundaries conflict with their inflated self-image. They may feel entitled to ignore or override someone's boundaries because they see themselves as more important. If a boundary prevents them from getting the attention, admiration, or control they want, they are likely to push through it without concern for how it affects the other person. EID, or Emotional Intensity Disorder, BPD. People with EID may violate boundaries due to their intense emotional swings and fear of abandonment. When they feel emotionally overwhelmed or insecure, they may cling to others, invade personal space, or push for deeper emotional involvement without recognizing or respecting the other person's need for boundaries. Their fear of losing connection can drive them to cross lines in an attempt to keep the relationship intact, even if it causes harm. DASD, or Dramatic Attention Seeking Disorder, or HPD. Those with DASD often violate boundaries in their quest for attention and validation. If someone's boundaries prevent them from getting the focus they crave, they may disregard them altogether, pushing emotional, physical, or conversational boundaries to draw attention back to themselves. They might create drama, overstep in relationships, or push for intimacy or attention in ways that make the other person uncomfortable, all in the service of staying in the spotlight. The impact of boundary violations. When someone consistently violates boundaries, it can lead to feelings of frustration, fear, and helplessness for those on the receiving end. Over time, this pattern can erode trust, making it difficult for the person to feel safe or respected in the relationship. It also creates a power imbalance, where the person whose boundaries are being violated feels they have little control over their own life or decisions. For the person violating boundaries, these actions often lead to unstable, dysfunctional relationships, because they fail to recognize or respect the autonomy of others. They may push people away or create toxic dynamics where conflict is constant. The inability to respect boundaries limits their capacity for deep, meaningful connections, as relationships become defined by control or emotional manipulation. Protecting yourself. If you're in a relationship where your boundaries are consistently being violated, it's essential to assert those boundaries clearly and firmly. Communicate your limits and make it known that violations are unacceptable. If the boundary violations persist despite your efforts, it's important to recognize that the other person may not be willing or able to respect your needs. In such cases, distancing yourself from the relationship may be necessary to protect your mental, emotional, and physical well-being.